Hello, 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 people. Welcome back to an episode of the USL Show. It is great day to be back. Last week, we gave you all our controversial takes on who was in the best 11. And for the most part, most people thought it was decent. Some people highly disagreed. And that's what we're here for. We're here to hate your club and your club only. But before we get into more club hating, of course, John, how are you?
Yeah, doing well. Happy we've got most of the group here.
Yeah, Miss Phil, but he's doing his thing right now. So it's good to see just about everybody here. Ryan, how are you?
Doing well, and for anyone watching the live stream, we're all wearing pretty decent kits.
Very true. Alex, how are you?
Yeah, doing all right. I dug this one out of the back of my closet. It barely fits. But you just can't see down here. So, but yeah, I got it. I actually got this in Colombia. So I'm pretty excited to find it and show it off here.
Very cool. Well, before we get into the news that kind of shocked the USL world today, I want to thank Josh, Dylan Reed, William Lamb, Will Otis, Mark B, Sandy Lester. Oh my gosh, I'm on the wrong one. Good for me. Josh, Dylan Reed, William Land, Sandy Lester, Ryan Smelter, Matt Catfield, Andrew Towsley, All the Hedgehog, Kunal Patel, MOS, NF Fresh 30, Tim Nosh, Rion Lacara, Stephen Howard, Jeremy Churchman, Alberto Aguilar, Noah Telford, Michael Fuchs, Joshua Duder, John Fuller, Christopher Cohn, Frank Anthony, John Hunt, and Harry Austin. Thank you so much for supporting. Thank you so much for supporting us. We really do appreciate you. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to go up to Portland in like 2 weeks. So seriously, without your love and support, we wouldn't be able to do what we are able to do. So we really do appreciate you. And we got some news today that shocked the USL pretty hard. It first came with a Union Omaha drop and Tampa Bay Rowdy confirmation. Dom Casciato leaves the Owls for sunny St. Pete. So the USL Coach of the Year and reigning USL League One champion is going down to Tampa Bay to be the head coach of the Rowdies. Alex, I want to start off with you on the. Never mind, Alex is not going to be able to hear that. He said, I do not want to talk about Union Omaha today. John, let's instead talk to you. What did you think of this news?
I was absolutely shocked. Like, I got online this morning and could not believe what I was seeing for a couple of reasons, right? Tampa Bay, they fired Robbie Nielsen more than 3 months ago, almost 3 months ago at this point. I think the common wisdom was that they were just going to ride it out with Steve Coleman and see what was going to happen. And the Rowdies had kind of turned their form around, like nice wins against Naples. They got one in the league before that. You thought maybe they've just figured it out. On the Omaha side of things, like Dom Casciato is an institution there. He's built that program into something special. It almost seemed like he would inevitably stay in Omaha until they made the jump to the championship at some point. So for these two parties to come together, the best manager probably in the history of League One, with an organization like Tampa Bay, with those sky-high expectations, that idea that they want to be a title contender no matter what, it's a perfect fit. And for it to happen in the middle of July on a random Tuesday morning, insane to see.
Alex, before the weather cut you off, what did you think about the news?
Yeah, it kind of, it came out of nowhere, obviously. It was something that I expected to happen in the off season for sure. But despite Omaha struggles, the guy has a resume that he can walk in anywhere and say, hey, you know what, I won back-to-back player shields, two of the best seasons in league history, 37, 16, 13 regular season record. Like, I mean, the stats on this guy are ridiculous. He's seen multiple players move up to like the championship level. By my count, Pedro Dolabella, Joe Brito, JP Sears, Alexis Suaje, Shaft Brewer Jr., and Noe Meza. May have missed a few, but I mean that's a pretty good list there for League One. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a great move for Tampa Bay. They're getting a good one.
Ryan, what did you think about all this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I echo what Alex and John had said, that the timing of this is incredibly surprising. Like John had said, that we would all expected the Rowdies to kind of just ride out the year and see what their, I guess, options were in the offseason. And like Alex had mentioned, that Casiato has always been kind of tipped to move up to that next level, to find that next job at some point, whether that would be bringing Omaha up to the next division or finding a Tampa Bay level job as he's now landed. But we didn't expect it just to happen to have a move here in July. But when you have the Rowdies currently just 6 points out of a playoff spot, as John had mentioned, they have kind of turned things around, and adding in Casiato could be that person who can take them back into the playoff field. And then once you're in the playoffs, as we've seen in years past, really anything can happen from there.
I want to read one of the statements by Gary Green, which is the owner of Union Omaha. I'm so proud of what our organization was able to achieve with Coach Casiato at the helm. I'm also incredibly proud that Coach Casiato's first head coaching opportunity came with Union Omaha, and now he's earned the chance to move up to the USL Championship. It's a testament to not only his talent and leadership, but also the winning culture we've built in Omaha. And I think that it is definitely fitting for Union Omaha because, I mean, let's just kind of throw it out there. The reason why they're struggling right now is because they let players go to the championship. They let players go to better situations, right? They are constantly having to find new all-league players to just replace every single year. And those chances don't change or stop at the player's side. Coaches now know if when they come into Union Omaha, they're not going to be blocked from going to a better opportunity at a higher level, even if it's mid-season. And in the offseason, Casiato was linked with a couple of clubs, and obviously that didn't come to fruition. But while the Rowdies are not having the best of season, although they've kind of started riding the ship a little bit, I mean, there's a lot of clubs in the USL that were linked to Casiato that did not take him, and now he's fallen into the lap of the Tampa Bay Rowdies, which are they having the best season now? But we know what they are.
Yeah, and you look at the setup for both of these clubs, somewhat similar in the way that they've succeeded and failed in 2025. Omaha and Tampa Bay are vastly underperforming their expected goal numbers. A lot of it owes to just simple defensive mistakes. You look at what the problem is with Omaha, like it feels that Brent Kelman in particular has struggled to land in a way where I don't think you can pinpoint one guy for Tampa Bay. And that almost makes it that the way Casiato sets up press is able to drill defensive rotations into his players. He's going to be able to get that improvement that the Rowdies need at the back. And I love what you're mentioning, Kaylor, about this developmental model that Omaha has developed. Like that is also a big reason why they've struggled. Some of the players that they brought in this season just haven't hit. That's going to be a natural response when you're moving on to Labella or you're allowing a Mastrantonio to go to AV Alta. And that's another aspect with Omaha. Not only are they willing to let you go to the championship, but if you can be closer to home, if you can be the cornerstone for an expansion team, Omaha's willing to let you do that. There isn't that sourness and saltiness when it happens. It speaks to the class of the club, even if it's a hard moment.
And Omaha, even for this move where Casiato received, at least from what Tampa Bay had mentioned, an undisclosed fee for his transfer. So they're still coming out ahead. I guess it's tough to lose your manager at this time, and they've not yet named a replacement, but they are at least being compensated for Casiato's move.
Yeah, I think one thing that you kind of bring up, John, is like the willingness to be closer to home. When we talked to Peter Marlette 3-4 years ago now, before he was Buffalo USL guy, he was the GM of Union Omaha. And he talked to us pretty in depth on how to sign players at the USL League One level. And he was like, we have to talk about, like, can we find housing for them with their family? Can we find housing that brings in their dogs, that brings in their cats? Can we find housing if they're single? Can we combine them with somebody? Are they willing to move in with a roommate well after college? You know, there's a lot that goes into signing these players, but he was also very open in what they are looking for in this player's first kind of thought process of, we're not just going to sign you and dump you into just some random housing. We're not just going to sign you and just like put you somewhere. Like, we want to make sure that we are the right fit for you. And if anything, if I'm a coach, doesn't this make Union Omaha even more appealing, knowing that if you prove your worth, that you're going to get a move and they won't stop you?
For sure. And this move in and of itself is unique. As Eamon Zayed mentioned when he was on the show a couple of weeks ago, there has never been a coach to go directly from a League One team to a championship team. It has never happened before today. So Omaha not only is showing that they have that openness, but they're showing that they are the place to be if you want to put yourself in the shop window and say, hey, I can manage an elite organization and make that step.
And just as Omaha continues to grow, whether that's going up to the championship or just however Pro develops, if they could say that we were the coach that started a career for a coach who ends up in MLS or beyond, that's going to be one incredibly cool, just kind of feather in the cap for this organization.
So we've mentioned a lot of the Union Omaha side of this, because I do frankly think it's the more interesting side, because they're the ones losing a coach. They're the ones that are having the first ever coach make the jump, right? But there is the Rowdy side of it. John, you kind of mentioned what he can do tactically. What can he bring to them? I mean, they started kind of figuring out the ship. They were competitive against Louisville City. They got a win against a really good Miami. They struggled against Pittsburgh, but also Pittsburgh's looked really good. They got a big win over Indy. And yes, it's a League One club, but also 2-0 over Naples. Not many clubs have done that this year. They're starting to figure it out. And if this is the time to get a fresh jolt of energy into a club that seems like it's re-energizing, I mean, there seems to be no limit on how high the Rowdies could go this year.
And I think it's crucial that Steve Coleman, in a very classy move, is deciding he's going to stay on the staff. He's just going to slide back into that assistant slot. So if you're worried about continuity, don't be, because every idea that Coleman had, every little innovation that was getting the best out of Luis Alvarez or an Ollie Bassett, that is still going to be internal to this club's thinking. Then you add the layer of Casciato, everything we know that he can do in terms of setting a team up in a pretty similar formation to what we've seen from Tampa Bay already. It feels like a brilliant hire in the long term, because we know what Dom can do, but also in the short term, it's going to be a pretty easy transition.
And especially coming in at this point right now, Tampa Bay has 5 consecutive road games still left to play of San Antonio, Hartford, Charleston in the Jägermeister Cup, Indy 11, and North Carolina. So it is very much kind of a really interesting kind of proving ground, especially as the Rowdies have this very long road trip, which also should lead into it, I guess, quote unquote, easier second half slate when they have a lot of these home games back to back coming up soon.
Do we have any final thoughts on this move with Casciato? All right. Well, we had a lot of movement kind of happen recently. Players were kind of being released, mutually released, and all that kind of stuff. But one big roster move that caught my eye, of course, was down in the Super League, where I think several people might have had her in their MVP race. Fort Lauderdale's Addie McCain is sold to Lexington for a record fee. We don't know what the fee was, but John, you kind of mentioned a floor in the Discord, and I'll let you talk about that a little bit. But Fort Lauderdale lose one of their best players, and Lexington is out spending big after they just hire a new coach from Chicago Stars. I want to start on the Fort Lauderdale side, because they are the ones losing an MVP candidate and finished second in Golden Boot. What does this mean for Fort Lauderdale?
I mean, it's a gigantic loss. You mentioned the goal scoring right off the bat, and that was such an important thing that McCain offered within that shape. Like, what she gave them as this second striker, supporting the movement underneath Locklear or whoever else was playing as the 9 was critical. But it was that gravity, that ability to receive the ball in the turn that opened up, I think, the thing we thought of as Fort Lauderdale's signature, which was the wing play from Hamid and Gordon. the fact that you had this trident across the front three supporting a number 9, like it made this team almost impossible to stop. It's the reason why they got to a title game. They will be able to advance without Adam McCain. Like, I trust the process. I trust a lot of the talent they've got there, but it's going to take a heck of a player to come up with that production and maintain the level in what looks like an improving Super League.
And especially impressive with Lexington. And after their bottom of the table finish this past year, to come out and make the new managerial hire, to hire a player like McCain, kind of just shows a commitment to trying to right the ship from last season, to really rebuilding this program into a club that will make the playoffs and kind of further raise the, rise the tide of all ships within the league, as you're kind of alluding to, John.
And John, you mentioned a floor that could be there on what this actually kind of means in terms of record-breaking deal. Obviously, what the actual deal is kind of up to debate, but at least we have a baseline. What was that?
I totally lost connection there.
No, you're totally fine. What you mentioned in our Discord, check out the Discord.
Yes. So I had heard when last, I believe, preseason, Luana Grabius moved from Fort Lauderdale to Brooklyn, that was about a $10K fee. Given the quality of player that we've seen both Grabius and Addie McCain to be, definitely more than 10K. Like, they've talked about it being record setting. If it was more than 6 figures, I would be shocked. Like, I think this is probably a high 5 figures number. But hey, for a league that is just getting started, and for the broader context of the USL, where you rarely even see a transfer fee like that in League One ever, if at all, that's meaningful. Like, that shows on one hand that Lexington is going to put resources into this team, wants to spend money to really be competitive. And I think it calls out the rest of the clubs heading into year 2 to say, let's put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah, and when I am kind of looking at just in general, if it is, let's call it round number, let's just assume here, let's call it $100,000, right? It's 100,000. If you're podcast only, you are missing out on Alex just having cameos every 30 seconds. But let's call it $100,000, okay? That's not far off the USL Championship inner USL record. We kind of heard backroom stuff that $250,000 was Philip Goodrum-ish, maybe a little bit more. In the first ever season of the USL Super League, you're getting $100,000. That's huge. Obviously Lexington seems to be playing with fake money most of the time. Like, I don't understand what they're doing in terms of money, but
Horse insurance.
like, it's hilarious. But also, if this is the precedent, right? That's a reasonable number. If that's the baseline from now on, we're looking at a very healthy inter-USL transfer situation. Maybe it won't be going to 100,000 each time, but that's because Addie McCain is like double digits on every level. Even if you're looking at $10,000, $15,000, $50,000 for a transfer, believe it or not, that's more than what most of your favorite USL Championship, USL League One teams are paying for their transfers. If your favorite USL Championship club is getting $10,000 for a player, they're very happy.
No, 100%. And I think it's important to contextualize the McCain move within the fact that Lexington is kind of going big at every spot on the field. Like, they raided Spokane. They got Mackenzie Weinert, who we talked about a lot. But equally important is Taylor Aylmer at the number 6 spot, one of the best tempo setters in the league. Alyssa Bourgeois is going to do the business at right back. I think Allison Pantuso coming in from Brooklyn as well, one of the best center backs you've got in the entire Super League. I can't speak as much to the NWSL imports, but the fact that they're coming from the NWSL means something. Like, Lexington from top to bottom has decided we really mean business this time around.
And I was looking through and trying just to keep up with who could be coming through the pipeline for Fort Lauderdale. Tabia Schutt I believe is how you pronounce her name. It's German. Scares me. It has the 2 dots over the U. But she's been at the heart of the goal scoring for Fort Lauderdale in the W League. She's a graduate already, so she's done with college, assuming she doesn't have any more like COVID eligibility, which I think we're finally getting through that. And so if they're looking to promote from within, which like their press release on this seems like they're pretty interested in doing, you have some ready-made replacements already coming through the academy system for Fort Lauderdale. So you can get, a transfer fee, a record-breaking transfer fee, and replace it for free. So that's great business for Fort Lauderdale. Are they going to be adding McCain? I hope so, because we need I love seeing Addie McCain's across the league, but chances are is that Addie McCain was in the Super League and everybody else was in the W League for a reason, right? But that isn't to say that there isn't good talent coming through the pipeline for Fort Lauderdale, and you should have every faith that they're going to be able to at least repeat similar success. Maybe not a finals appearance, but at the very least be competitive for playoffs.
No, 100%.
So we talked a little bit about Lexington news. How about a little bit more Lexington news, as they are bringing in a homegrown talent from MLS, from New England, where, John, I'm just going to ask you 2 questions. How can they fit more people on this roster? And also, they can't, so I'm going to answer that. Who's on the chopping block to get loaned out? Because there's no way to bring in another player without someone leaving.
I mean, at this point, I have no idea. Like, maybe Daniel Wu is heading down to League One again just because. Like, that's the best I can figure. I will say, when you think about a lot of the loans that have happened, and I'm particularly thinking about Adedokun and Ajago, those were pieces that felt like a precondition for success. Like, Lexington needed them as ingredients in the Terry Boss system to win games. The move that we're seeing this time around is a lot more of a supporting thing. You're adding some depth to the mix. You just want to make sure you've got some supporting players that can buttress what's become a very successful setup. So in that sense, I'm a little bit less willing to just laugh at what Lexington's doing. But it also is insane. Like, they've got, if you think about the ins and outs, easily a dozen players either loaned with the club or out at somewhere else within America right now. It's a kind of a crazy method. We've talked about it a lot, but hey, it's starting to work.
The Chelsea loan army method, if you will, but this is a Lexington team who's won 4 in a row now.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find the guy's name because I got to be honest, I kind of lost it along the way, but there was the rumor. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't really understand why we're doing the roster moves right now. Again, because Lexington's kind of getting hot. And part of the reason why they were not hot is because they kept messing with the starting 11 and like the 18 on the bench. They just kept tinkering and messing with crap. And it finally felt like they had the players in the right places to do things. And I love the fact that they are being ambitious and thinking that nobody's good enough to be replaced. But it finally felt like they were finally in a good place to not replace people.
I mean, given the fact that like Speedy Williams doesn't seem like he's going to be a fit with the tactical style, Edric Caceres isn't a player that has done a whole lot as a pro. Like, he's in his rookie season. If you can get only in the mix as a midfielder who can contribute 20 minutes off the bench in a given game, I don't think that's a bad thing, and I don't think it's destabilizing.
Alex puts in the chat, because weather has won today, that Lexington is announcing a loan sign tomorrow. So who from Lexington is coming to Richmond? Honestly, Daniel Wu would be an awesome signing for Richmond. They need center back and all defensive help, really. I think that would be a great fit.
Without revealing too much about what's happening with the Richmond move, I don't think they need a center back. Like, sign a midfielder and let Dakota Varnathan get back into the back line. Like, let nature heal. That's what I'm asking for.
John, I think you might have had a couple of other player stuff that you wanted to mention. Is that right?
I've got a dumb one, and it is Lexington
Sure.
related.
Of
I don't
course.
think we ever talked about the fact that Yannick Yankum and Shaft Brewer from Las Vegas both signed for the same club in Malta. That rules.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah,
Like, I don't have anything useful to say, but just kind of a weird coincidence.
good for them. I didn't know what happened to Brewer at all, and then he was just like, "I'm in Malta now." I'm like, "All right, cool."
Go off, King.
For the USL Immaculate Grid answer, it's one day.
Yeah.
All right. Alex had USL League One expansion, but Alex is in the chat and not in here, so I think we'll leave that to another day. Let's go out to League One. And hey, speaking of Daniel Wu, let's talk about his former club in the Greenfield Triumph, where they get a massive 3-0 win over Westchester. First one, Rodrigo Robles gets a goal in the 9th minute. And then you get 2 penalties scored. Robles with the second penalty and Chaparrera with the first penalty. And from there, it was fairly smooth sailing besides Chapa getting sent off. But we're not going to talk about that. Greenville has seemingly figured it out. And I know some people are going to look at the table and say, yeah, but it's Westchester. To me, I think the bigger deal here is that they kept Westchester off the board. Greenville has seemingly fixed their defense, and I take this down to we got an Evan Lee sitting as a number 6, and he has given a lot of stability to that back line, and it's paid off massively.
Yeah, and since I'm kind of using like Connor Evans joining the central midfield as this line of demarcation, since Evans became that player instead of dominating the right wing, Greenville has been really willing to experiment with what they're doing in the central areas. Like Evan Lee can play the 6, but at times he is a little bit more expressive, trying to be somewhat more incisive when he gets touches. In the game against Westchester, Chapa Herrera was playing as a lone number 10, essentially man marking that single midfielder that Westchester liked to use in the pocket. The way that they adapt feels so intentional every single week. And you really love to see it because Greenville can be incisive when they have that sense of intentionality. Every single time that they forced a turnover, they were driving upfield, finding someone like a Ben Zakowski cutting inside, finding Robles tearing up the wing. That sense of balance was there. The defensive rotations never missed. Did Westchester play into it by just being so sloppy from the back? Absolutely. And you see that 71% possession number cited by Alex in the chat. That's because the game was over after 20 minutes. Like Greenville was willing to just defend, trust what you can get with Zane Bubb and Brandon Fricke in the back line. I thought Gunter Rankenberg had an awesome game against Westchester. Really just a complete performance from Greenville in a game that I think highlighted a lot of what has been going wrong for the expansion side.
Yeah, I mean, I had been at least out on Greenville for quite a while this season, but like this past 3 games that they've had where they've gone 3 games in a row, they've scored multiple goals in each of those 3 games for the first time since October of last year, and they've maintained a clean sheet streak for a little over 4 hours or enough time to watch the Terminator twice in that time. Like Greenville has certainly turned things around, at least for my point of view, that they are at least getting back into this playoff picture and now becoming a lot more of a reliable team to wager on. But from the Westchester side, yeah, this is it's really interesting where they're going to go from here. Just their problems with conceding goals and not finishing out games have been pretty well documented. And it kind of compounds upon itself for the issues this expansion club has been facing on the field so far.
Yeah, and John, you mentioned the Connor Evans being kind of your demarcation, right? Why not Toby Sims, who, made his name out in Pittsburgh, then goes over to England, comes back. He's been something special for them. And for me, that's another moment, right? They bring in really good talent for the League One level, especially. He's been playing center back. He's been playing right back. I think at times he would like slide up into the midfield for them whenever they kind of need him to. Granted, I don't think he's done that very much, but I think he's like done it like once or twice in a match. Like he kind of does it all. And it seems like it's been able to really make things flow a lot better for Greenville as well.
He's been so disciplined, mostly playing the right back spot and doing so against Westchester. I think the thing for me is kind of like a double-sided thing with Sims. Basically never loses a duel. Like he's very physically dominant, which you might not expect from a player who just ran off 46 matches with Harrogate Town in the English lower leagues. Like guy doesn't look fatigued one bit. And when he's on the ball, it's that progressivity once again. Like he's so willing to go long. He's really smart about the timing when he receives. He's not going to rush into something. He's going to make sure that the defense commits a little bit so he can open up space between the lines. Such an intelligent player. And you're right to point out, like equally difference making. As Greenville has had this sequence of changes that have continued to improve them over the past month or so.
So what about the Westchester side? Because you look at who they have on the pitch and it doesn't make sense on why it's losing. Because it's not even just like 2018 All-Stars, right? It's not like we're looking at, yesteryear's stars. These are players that are still very much in their prime and that were good last year. Why is it just not working?
I think you're right about that aspect of the team when you look at the front end. Like it's Obregon, it's Sadie, it's Bolaños. Those are all guys that can do it still. And then the defense has been a bit of a revolving door. When you look at the back line and it's Powder and John Baptiste and Teta, those were decent players once upon a time. But given some of the injury issues, it's not always like Stephen Payne, the center backs that they want to have in that mix. So you get really what is like an all-stars of 2018 that haven't had a chance to build chemistry, that for my taste are playing a system that does not suit their strengths, far too committed to building out from the back, not having enough personnel in the deep spaces to really support that pattern. They are playing into mistakes constantly, like stepping on a rake every single time they go out and play. It takes a very particular matchup for that to work. And we saw it against Madison to a degree. We saw it against Pittsburgh in the Jägermeister Cup. When they are playing against teams that are a bit slower and not really good on the counter, they can have those mistakes forgiven to a certain degree. But a lot of the time, Westchester is just getting punished because the defense can't figure it out.
I mean, as Tottenham this year, how important it is to have a consistent back line.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, my reaction. I just looked down at my phone to try to pull something up to like for the show, and I got a notification that DeMarcus Beasley has followed the USL show.
I have heard that he is in the offices as much as possible in Fort Wayne, so that is awesome to hear.
So, spoiler, check out Kid Season. Check out Kid Season this upcoming up week. Very cool stuff coming out with that. I don't know if you just saw my cat sprint into the window. That was insane. Whatever. I don't even know where I was going to go. I completely lost my train of thought. So how about we go out to East Tennessee as Chattanooga down 1-0. Matthew Bentley gets a goal, and they hold on for the entirety of the match. And I don't want to be the referee guy. I really don't. But that might be the worst red card I have ever seen in my life. And the fact that Chattanooga was able to weather the storm after a really rough refereeing decision and win 1-0, it felt very Chattanooga-y for this year, and it just kind of summed up the entire season.
Eastridge be like that. Like every single game that happens there is just havoc. I will also say that I've never seen a stadium where the attendance is reported at 2,000 look like that. So I won't go further there, but shout out Red Wolves. I love you so much. In terms of the game itself, these are two teams that are best when they can counterattack. And I think One Knox has really found that is their strength this year, when they can get Doyle and Tequila and those sorts of players on the move. And yes, Tequila was out here, but I think Chattanooga absolutely dominated where, how, and at what tempo the match was going on. That's been the strength of Scott McKenzie's side all season long. There's something that he does, the way he talks to that group, that they just bring the energy every single time they're out on the field. It maybe isn't always pretty, but they're so good about getting the ball into the box, really good about switching play into their wingbacks and relieving pressure when they need to do it. I just come away impressed when I watch them play. Like, there's no two ways about it. It's fundamental soccer. It's not going to blow you away with the classiness of it, but it's so effective.
Chattanooga, Burnley FC, if you will. But this is another team this weekend with One Knox, who, like Alex had said in the chat, had 71% possession in this game and still weren't able to come away with a victory as the Red Wolves get their first win over their in-state rival since July 2023. But as we're seeing Spokane, AB Alta, and Charlotte as the top three teams in the league right now, I don't think many of us had the Red Wolves as being that best of the rest at the moment. And despite only being 4 points out of Charlotte in third, if results start to go their way, we could be looking at like a guaranteed home playoff game for this Chattanooga team.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I had them dead last. I thought they were going to be terrible.
We all had them dead last. I will say Ayman Zayed came on the show and said, don't count the Red Wolves out. And I almost laughed on the show very audibly. Like, I was like, there's no way. But he was a McKenzie believer. And we are all turning that way as well. Can we just throw it out there? If Red Wolves host a playoff game, should that be our next road trip? Like, I feel like
we'll double their attendance.
4,000 in attendance this afternoon. Just a couple of things. When you're looking at, for me, the One Knox side, it's hard for me to kind of be worried about them. I know I saw a little bit of doom and gloom kind of happen. I'm not too worried. Obviously, it wasn't a good showing, but the Red Wolves have kind of just done this all year long. And I do think that One Knox has the makings of a team that not only is going to make the playoffs, but I could realistically see finish in the finals. Like, they just have the makings of a team that can realistically be there. So I'm not worried about them. But
yeah,
I'm starting to get to the point with the Red Wolves of I'm teetering on the line of, when do I believe? Because, like, I think I'm starting to believe as opposed to waiting for the wheels to completely fall off. Because we've been waiting it's July now, for about 4 months for the wheels to fall off, and it hasn't happened. So I think I'm starting to get to the point with the Red Wolves where I'm going to believe in them until I don't.
You're getting your Morpheus in the Matrix looking at Neo saying he's starting to believe moment.
I just wish they had one more goal scorer. Like, that's the drawback. I like Bentley. I think that everything Bentley does defensively and the grit and the way he sets his teammates up is pretty essential to the whole setup in Chattanooga. But if they had that one striker who you could count on in the big moments, that would elevate them. But clearly it isn't hurting. Like, League One is wide open. They're taking care of business. I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to Chattanooga, clearly, based on my predictions. So, hey, keep on riding, Red Wolves.
I will say on July 19th, they host Spokane, which will be a very telling match. I know it comes to basically being at Eastridge, a tough place to go and play for Spokane and for anyone else. But if they can get a result in that game against the Velocity, it's going to be looking very good for Chattanooga.
Also, this is just really random. Aaron Lombardi signed for them, who played with them 2 years ago. He was down at Tormenta. I just have a random fact, and it's that he has I think probably the best goal I've ever seen in person, and nobody's ever going to see it because it was in the U.S. Open Cup when they didn't stream any of the games in the first 2 rounds. He hit a volley from like 35 yards out, like a full volley from 35 yards out, and just put it top corner. and it was absolutely disgusting, and no one ever saw it, and it made me really sad for him.
Tough.
I just had to get that out. Any final thoughts for this match? All right. If we have any other League One thoughts, that's going to be open floor at the very end because we got to get to the championship. And hey, I'm a Birmingham fan. I'm not gonna let that lie. I am a Birmingham Legion fan. So when I saw it was an all Legion affair down in Texas, to see Juan Agudelo and Alex Cronale get a 2-1 win over El Paso, I was sad for Phil, but good to see San Antonio get back into this. And this is a very competitive West where a bad 3-week stretch and a good 3-week stretch could see anybody in a home playoff spot. It's exciting. And San Antonio showed that they could take it to, at the time, the second best team out West.
Yeah, and the key when you're coming against El Paso is to stop Amando Moreno and stop Andy Cabrera. I know Moreno got a goal in this game, but it was off a rebound and kind of an ugly situation off a long shot. For the most part, Carlos Llamosa had them completely contained. A lot of that owed to the defensive approach, where San Antonio basically just pressed in a 4-2, but forced El Paso to go around the edges, and whenever they tried to pass it and thread the needle up the sideline into those wingers, they were getting slammed against the sideline. It was a pretty simple approach, but it played into San Antonio's strengths. It let them force some takeaways like you saw in that Agudelo goal, and it really disrupted the rhythm we've seen from the Locomotive. There was a stretch later in the game where El Paso really took the game by the scruff of the neck. They let Eric Calvillo kind of do his thing. They brought in Ricky Ruiz off the bench and had like a proper left back giving them that full extension from side to side. And San Antonio knew how to react. They went back 5 at that point. They saw the game out. Cronale gets his thing at the end of the game. Just a complete performance from a San Antonio team that didn't even have Jorge Hernandez healthy. Like, that is a statement if there ever was one from this club.
And they've won 3 games in a row now for the first time since March, including a victory over Omaha in the Jägermeister Cup that now has the manager of their next opponent with Tampa Bay. But as Kaylor, you mentioned, like, first in the West to last in the West right now is separated by just 10 points. And San Antonio, just over the couple recent weeks, has now catapulted into second in the Western Conference in the table right now. It's a very competitive conference.
Also, I'm absolutely here for the Reese Buckmaster resurgence. I really thought he was just going to be a scrap player that played minutes when everybody else died, but he's been a real contributor for San Antonio. Other guys like Jake LaCava, who we all knew what Jake LaCava could be, but he never seemed to refine that Tampa Bay form ever again. And I really enjoyed what I've been seeing out of San Antonio, because there's a lot of players that you liked them, but what are they now, right? Like, we all know what Mitchell Tanner is, arguably best center back in the league right now, arguably best defender in the league. We know what Alex Cronale is, or like what he has been for Birmingham, but there were at times in Birmingham where he was, one of the liabilities on defense. It seems like finding a new home has really livened up his life and like his career again. But Reese Buckmaster, I think, has been the best example of guys that we counted out are really succeeding down in the Lone Star State.
And it took time to get here for this team. Like, Carlos Llamosa wanted to start Juan Carlos Osorio over Buckmaster. He played a back 5 with Luis Paredes as the wingback before he gave Buckmaster that run out. We knew what Reese Buckmaster could do. We've seen him be this level of player at other stops. He's crucial to the defensive balance, and he was the reason that Amando Moreno couldn't go off in this match. Like, the individual work that he was doing with support on the back end from Cronale, you can't say enough about those two players doing exactly what you said, Kaylor, reviving their careers, showing why they've been in this league for such a long time.
Any final thoughts on this particular match?
Yeah.
I will say, I think there's been a little bit of fear mongering from Phil for the last, again, 3 months of El Paso is going to fall apart. It's too good to last. But I would, even though it is like way too, like it doesn't look good. If you told El Paso fans on July 8th that they'd be in third right now, everything in context, I think they would absolutely kill somebody for this kind of season. But I am kind of with Phil, just a little bit of like, how much of this was fake, how much of this was like they got hot early and see what happens. But still, context.
And being in third, what does that actually mean in the West this year? Like you're what, 6 points above the playoff cut line? Anything could happen for them right now. I worry when I watch them play that they are just a little bit too easy to game plan against. If there is a knock against Wilmer Cabrera, it's that he can be somewhat stubborn and somewhat slow to change up the system. We've started to see that, and I'm waiting for plan B to come into action.
Wasn't there a year at RGV where he completely bucked that trend and kept playing like 5 different systems in 4 games and none of them worked, and he just went back to doing what he always did and just never changed again?
It turns out the secret was kind of just let Taylor Davila and Jonas Fjellberg cook, and hey, it got him to the playoffs.
I respect it. Let's go and stay out west. This is a West pod. And hey, maybe the Roots are growing right now because they get a win, 2-0 win over Detroit City. And there's a conversation about Detroit City, just kind of like El Paso. Did they flourish too early? Did they get too hot too early? But Oakland is showing life, and they've been one of the best teams in terms of just like form since the new coach comes in. How much are you impressed by Oakland, or how much of this is Detroit City is not that great right now?
So a lot of the reaction to this game looked at the stat sheet and said, oh, Oakland only attempted 2 shots. And I'm not here to tell you that's great, but Oakland also had 55 final third entries. They felt like they really controlled how the game was played. They put a complete lid on Detroit. There are just some matches where you can't connect on that final ball, and I think this was that night for Oakland. And it speaks volume that they still got a 2-0 win. What Benny Feilhaber has done is maximize this midfield. He is getting Panos Armanakis involved and putting him in the exact position where he can be the player we know that he is capable of being. On his day, Armanakis might be the most talented player in the USL, straight up. He gets that moment of magic that decides this match. But overall, Oakland never got away from their structure. The wingbacks sat a little bit deeper because they knew they needed to, A, be safe in possession, make sure you're not turning the ball over and giving Detroit anything easy. And then B, you want to make sure that someone like a Villanueva can't do the job getting wide. It worked like a charm. It stopped Detroit from finding the patterns. That's credit to Feilhaber for building something replicable and picking the guys that he know can do a job for what he's trying to do.
And looking at it from Oakland's perspective, they've now won 3 games in a row across all competitions for the first time in over a year. And just to go back to talking about how close the Western Conference is, they're still just now 1 point out of a playoff spot from where, from when Feilhaber took over. We thought Oakland was not going to get into a playoff spot for the remainder of the season. And so it's impressive, just how much Feilhaber has been able to do in such a short time. Obviously, there's still a long ways to go for this Oakland team. Looking at it from Detroit's perspective, I hadn't realized it until just scrolling through other stats. They've played 10 of their last 11 games away from home right now. I believe that was the case. They've had a long, at least road trip for quite a while, and they will get back to playing a Keyworth this weekend against Miami. But that's going to weigh on any team within this league.
Also, I'm kind of looking at the Oakland side of it because I do think there's a full Detroit City conversation to have here. Mm-hmm. But someone like Gagi has been awesome since Feilhaber has taken over. Like, he's been awesome. I've loved watching him play. And a player that's seen both sides of this now, Murray Donor, there's been an argument since he's gone to Oakland, has been the best right back in the league. Granted, 3-4 matches, but he's been awesome, right? It feels like Oakland may have found a little bit of the sauce, but I'm a little bit worried because we had the same exact conversation with Oakland last year before we went out to see them versus San Antonio. Wow, can you believe it? Oakland's won 5 of their last 6 going against San Antonio, who's won however many in a row, and they were both Sacramento, and they're so good. And look at Oakland, and then they got killed, right? We've seen this story before with Oakland. Look, they have a coach. Look, they have a team. Oh, no, the coach is fired. Wow, the team got good. They made the playoffs. They beat someone in the first round and nothing else. Next year, it's the same exact thing. So I don't want to be doom and gloom, but we've seen this book by Oakland.
But think about the formula last year with Glinton, where there was, even at the best of times, it was very Jekyll and Hyde from this team, where one week they'd be giving up 5 goals. The next they'd be dropping 3 on somebody because Johnny Rodriguez would go off. It was feast or famine in a way that didn't feel as designed and intentional. I watched the setup these past 2 games. I think they had Monterey last week, if I'm remembering correctly, and Jaeger. In any event, Oakland just looks like they have a game plan. They're playing very structured defensively. They aren't getting out over their skis in the pursuit of just desperation attacking plays. That to me is a sign of a coach in Benny Feilhaber who is assured in what he is trying to build. I think he's been smart about what he's doing in the midfield in particular. Like, this was a first half against Detroit where it was a double pivot. El Masnaoui was bringing the energy. He knew he needed a little bit more support. So at halftime, you're getting Bayar Hunga in, you're getting Daniel Gomez in, changing the shape a little bit in order to just make sure that you're choking Detroit out of their game and denying their patterns. On the Detroit side, they made a halftime change too, getting Connor Rutz out of the match and bringing Seb Guenzati into the game. That felt like such a nothing. There isn't that dynamic scorer. Since the month of April, Darren Smith really has fallen off the planet. It feels like if you're Detroit, you have to get Jesse El Cedeno touches between the lines, or else there's just nothing. I don't know, man. I want to be positive about Denny Dicchio, but there's something lacking in the team's energy right now that just feels off.
Can I read some results to you? This is since May 7th. And Detroit City fans, just close your ears because you know what's coming. So just ignore this for, I guess. 4-0 loss to Chicago in the Open Cup. 0-0 draw to Hartford. 1-1 draw to Birmingham. 3-1 loss to Charleston. 4-2 loss to Portland. 2-0 loss to Pittsburgh. 3-2 loss to Loudoun. 2-0 win over Miami. 2-2 draw on penalty win versus Hartford. 2-0 loss to Oakland. Even when they're losing, they're just not scoring. Like, yes, they have a 3-2 loss in there. They do have a couple of 2-2s, where they have 1 goal. But we're seeing it this year where 1 goal is not enough to squeak it out anymore unless you're Bob Lilly's Pittsburgh side. Maybe last year's Detroit City team, 2 years ago Detroit City team that could just stand on their head and defend all game long couldn't win those matches 1-0. But these aren't those teams. They don't seem to have a defensive solidity to make up for the lack of firepower this year.
Yeah, and I think it's something that comes for every team that tries to run it back 4 years in a row. I know we've seen some changes, like Steinwasser's gone. Stephen Carroll has taken a bit of a back seat this year, but it's on Mensah, it's Bryant, it's a lot of the same midfielders, even a Connor Rutz up top. Those are players that had their day, but it can just get stale at times. This group has done a lot, but I am starting to worry, given how the rest of the USL has grown and evolved, that Detroit just might be a bit off the pace in 2025.
So we've seen Carlos Herrera get a couple of starts now. He's had 12 starts for them. Saldana has had 8 for them this year. And it seems like they're trying to figure it out who's really going to be in goal. Because really, when I thought they were at their best, it was Saldana in goal. But, Carlos Herrera is a really good goalkeeper of itself. I think there's and I'm going to mispronounce his name, but he was an absolute monster in Nisa. The Mikaruva.
Yeah.
He was an absolute stud in Nisa. And I know some people are going to say, haha, Nisa, but also bringing up a really good Nisa goalkeeper's worked for Detroit before. And I'm not saying that he's going to be the answer like Steinwasser was, because Steinwasser is still the best goalkeeper I've ever seen in person. Like, I still fully stand by that. But it's not working in net right now fully. Why not try it?
Something's got to give for this team. I don't know why not at this point.
So what about anything else from this match from you guys? Okay. So this is where I'm going to go full open. We're just going to go ahead and go open floor. And I wasn't sure what to do in the notes, but I just want to kind of bring up Birmingham largely because they get a really nice 0-0 draw versus Charleston where they really shut down the attack from Charleston, and that was really impressive. And then they have one of the sloppiest midfield performances I've seen in a long time versus Rhode Island, but they still earn a 1-1 draw there and get 2 points from those 2 matches. There is a lot of they're showing up one game and then they're just not doing it the next. I guess from an outsider's point of view who is not having to live it, what are you guys kind of seeing there?
I watched that second half against Rhode Island. I'm seeing those long balls over the top, and I'm just fully bought into everything this team is doing. There is the major caveat that Rhode Island is kind of a mess right now, but man, there was just a level of dynamism to the movement that the Legion were bringing to the table, really intentional in the patterns upfield. You pair that level of electricity with the defensive grit we saw against Charleston, the level of midfield organization that kind of disappeared match over match, that's a team that can push on for a home playoff game in a vacuum. I don't know if Mark Briggs has 11 players that can combine both of those extremes all at once on the field, but man, that is such an enticing possibility if Birmingham can do the job. But I agree with where you're at, Kaylor, of I'm liking a lot of what I'm seeing. I just wish it would happen more often and for a full 90.
And Birmingham, for the first time in club history, has drawn 3 consecutive games in a row across all competitions, which I know, Kaylor, you not being a fan of draws, are definitely loving this period.
Honestly, getting a draw in this match was great against Rhode Island because, fun fact for you, Ryan, and this one comes from Timothy Bellin, who's at Birmingham Sports. He's he's
awesome.
Wonderful at his job. Legion in their history had never gotten a single result from the 16th game in the season.
That is so Ryan coded. I love it.
So I just wanted to throw that one out there. Yeah, John, you mentioned those long balls over the top, trying to find those half spaces on diagonal runs, which is how they got their goal against Rhode Island, going over the top. Turnbull gets it and then passes it over to Damas.
Yes.
I asked Briggs against Charleston why the team kind of stopped doing that, because I was against Indy, that seemed like it was the big focal point, and then they kind of got away from it. I was why? It was was that a you decision? Was that something the players were seeing? And boy, I'm still not used to Mark Briggs' interview, because he just looked at me and he was like, I don't know why they stopped. You asked the players. I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay. But yeah, I mean, clearly that's what Briggs wants to do, is those long diagonal balls into half spaces and just beat them. And there's pace there. I think that if everybody buys into it, it's going to work. And I keep telling everybody to be patient. But I know it's hard because the East is a slog, but also a good few weeks gets you back into the playoff line.
I mean, a win this weekend can get Birmingham back above the playoff line with other results.
No results matter nothing matters. That's kind of what I've gotten to is you can probably lose 5 in a row, win 2 straight matches, and you might be in contention for a home playoff spot. Nothing matters. Another match that I wanted to ask you guys about was Texoma versus Spokane. And John, you've spoken about Texoma several times now. And they just kind of keep doing it. Are we going to just kind of talk about them the same way we talk about the Red Wolves? None of it makes sense. This is all dumb, but they win.
I think the big difference is that the underlying numbers kind of like what Chattanooga is doing. And the underlying numbers look at Texoma and are like, you guys are a bunch of frauds. I'm somewhat more forgiving when I watch them play. They're just willing to be on the back foot. They spend a lot of time defending. They don't lead for very long when they do get the lead. But when they can get on the counterattack and Ajmer Spengler is doing his thing, it's kind of unstoppable. He is pretty low to the ground, but that low center of gravity helps him on the dribble and makes him so agile. He really understands when do I need to release a pass in order to maximize the space for a teammate. And as soon as that happens, he is making some sort of clever run to make himself available to receive on the return pass. That is the pattern basically every time they score. It's awesome to see in a way because they really reject a lot of the trends, the possession dominance that I think a lot of teams go for. It's an interesting brand of soccer. Clearly, it's doing the job for them. I hope it keeps working because it's fun to see a team just be a little bit weird.
And Texoma has gone unbeaten in their last 8 league games played, which is something that we probably wouldn't have picked them when they were in the midst of the start of their year. In fact, we have July 16th, a perfect kind of just Wednesday night game of Texoma traveling to Chattanooga, which is just excellent.
July 16th. Can I drive that?
Yeah, that's sicko country right there.
That's a Wednesday. I can't do that. God, that's the Devil Birds versus the Red Wolves in person, the matchup everybody's been clamoring for. Now that should have been the mimosa match of the season.
I was going to say get a CBS there for primetime.
God bless. Also, kind of on Texoma's side, Sergio Chavez, I really like him. I think he's a class center back. I think he's awesome. He's someone that I feel
their
like
center backs just have like a little bit of bite to them in a way that I find so fun. Like this team is gritty. They're never afraid to go shoulder to shoulder with you. That's how they create all the transitions. It's refreshing in a way. I don't know.
We need to just combine Texoma and Chattanooga at some point, and I want to see the makeup of that team.
Okay, I have one last open floor thing, but I want you guys to go first if you have anything.
I want to shout out Josh Jones for Lou City. Started, I think, maybe their last 3 games in the center of the back line. Mm-hmm. And the kid who's a rookie out of the University of Louisville has been pretty unbelievable. He's so tall. He is so good in the air. You wouldn't necessarily expect him to be as agile and as quick in the acceleration as he is. But man, he is doing everything for Lou City right now. And they continue to just roll. They're an absolute machine. But Jones has not missed a beat.
Seeing any rookie make it for Lou City is always impressive. Like just seeing anybody who's a first year kind of break the squad is impressive. Oh my God, and I'm blanking on his name. He's been there for like ever, but he hasn't been playing. He's homegrown. He's been playing recently. Oh my God.
Carlos Mogul?
Mogul, thank you. He's finally getting some run as well, and he's making the most of it right now, and I've been really impressed with him.
There was a point in 2023 where he was a regular starter, straight up, like in the best 11 for this team. And then early in 2024, he had a real nightmare of a match against Charleston. I don't know if there was an injury after that or just something in the changing room, and he basically didn't play the rest of the year. To have him come back now and show that potential again could be huge, honestly, for Louisville.
Any other open floor thoughts?
We didn't get to it, but I at least wanted to shout out Tulsa, who are unbeaten in their last 6 league games played, and they now find themselves in a very unfamiliar spot in my ELO ratings as the best team in the Western Conference right now, mainly because New Mexico lost away from home to Pittsburgh last week. But still, it's really a team that I think I've not talked about enough, in that they've just kind of quietly done their thing and kept a consistent part of the top 4 race in the Western Conference.
My working theory is that most of the West is actually bad, but I think FC Tulsa is good. So that's what I have to say on that topic.
I mean, read the Backfield article and you'll see what John has to say about Luke Spencer.
Yeah, good things. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Second head coaching gig. Don't forget player coach, 3-way player coach.
I refuse to count that. That's 1/3 of a coaching gig.
Can we put that on his CV? Kind of speaking of that match, by the way, Ryan, that's one of the things I meant to bring up. I kind of, as soon as we got off of our best 11 show, I had instant regrets about, I'm really sorry about Enderlong, but I love Bonifilio.
I'll tell you what, man, when I was thinking about it, it's Cal Jennings from the championship. It's Cal Jennings A1 and Bonfiglio A2. I think at one point he was responsible for 33% of all shots Miami had taken and like nearly half of their goals.
Oh,
that team is, safe to say, kind of nothing without him. Like, the system is what it is, but they badly need a number 9, and he is living up to it.
Yeah, that was kind of my, I feel like that was a miss, but no one like brought it up. But I felt like that was a miss on my part to at least not bring him up as one of the best of the rest. So I just wanted to get that out there.
When he scored, they've only lost once this year.
That's unbelievable. Okay, here's my quick thought that I was at my new job today, and I was just kind of sitting and just kind of thinking. Obviously, I was like trying to get stuff organized, but it just kind of got lost in my thoughts a little bit. And I started thinking about a USL All-Star game, right? Now, a little bit of this was thinking about MLS's All-Star game is like kind of coming up. The MLB All-Stars just kind of released their full thing. If there were to be a USL All-Stars, would you put it, first question, would you put it in the middle of the season or at the very end? And B, would you have it be 2 best 11s, like League One best 11 versus Championship best 11, or would you try to find some international team for the teams to play?
Okay, so as a certified sicko, I would have it be League One against Championship.
Okay.
As a person who realizes that the league probably needs to try to make money off of this game, I would get an international club to come play. My contribution to the model is that we're going to do an MLB-esque Legends thing and force Cameron Lancaster to be there.
Love that. Okay.
I would hold it in middle of the year. My preference would be to have it be like just a combination of like a USL All-Stars, like truly make it like Championship against League One, or find a way to have it be like an East v West and just divide the country that way, and just any club, League One or Championship on either side of this imaginary barrier, that's your team for this competition, and then just have them face off against each other. But when you're seeing the likes of Louisville getting to play Frankfurt in friendlies, like getting a Bundesliga club to come in, play the USL All-Stars would be an undeniably really cool experience. But what would be the skill showdown that you would be picking?
Oh, gosh. So,
Goalie wars?
Goalie wars was always electric, so I got to be honest. So, yes. There was the one from MLS All-Stars when they had Arsenal or Chelsea where they did like a crossbar competition and the Premier League player just like could not hit the crossbar to save his life, which was hilarious. Eric Ronaldo, Corey Herzog as coaches, and they picked their teams like a pickup game. Honestly, kind of here for that.
Yeah, actually, though, it's 11 players League One, 11 Championship, and then it becomes the schoolyard picking guys. I kind of dig that.
Oh, it's Havertz. Thank you. Yeah, honestly, okay. So doesn't the NBA do that, or the NFL,
They
where they
used
just
to,
like have a
yeah.
pool?
Yeah, NBA.
Yeah.
The NBA
I mean,
changes their all-star format too often.
every year.
I think I've got a dumb all-star thing at a higher level. I think all-star games are outmoded. I don't think in the year of our Lord 2025 we need an all-star game. People consume these sports by watching highlights. Like they're not grinding tape for 90 minutes to 2 hours. If it was 1950 and you're getting to see the guys from the American League that you don't even play once come to your town and they're the all-stars, awesome. That was 1950. Like World War II is long in the rearview mirror, my boys. Like I don't know. It feels like a money grab whenever it happens.
Well,
If we
yes.
have a USL All-Star game and it's East v West, winner gets to their conference winner gets to host USL Cup.
Could you imagine? Just like they used to do for MLB.
Despicable.
Well, it's funny because you say that. I was looking at buying tickets for the Atlanta All-Star game because it's like 3 hours that way. And the cheapest tickets are like $600 something. So like people are consuming it massively still.
Crazy.
I mean, but no, I mean, I was just kind of thinking about it because if it was like League One versus Championship, I feel like that would just not go down very well. I feel like people wouldn't really attend it, but I love the idea of schoolyard, just get people show up. Our Legends pick though has to be a coach. Like one of the players has to be a coach.
I dig that. Or we just have Bobby Lilly manage the team. I mean,
both of them. He's out there just kind of playing both sides and screaming at everyone.
I do like the idea that like we get Sevilla to come play, and then Bob Lilly takes 11 All-Stars and just parks the bus for 90 minutes. Like that's kind of what I'm hoping for.
It reminds me of when Caleb Porter wouldn't get Pep Guardiola to shake his hand at the MLS All-Star game in Portland a few years ago. Could we get Pep Guardiola to get so mad that Bob Lilly and the MLS All-Star or the USL All-Stars were able to park the bus against Manchester City?
Lily's just berating the All-Stars for an hour after the game at a neutral site.
It's like, bro, we just want to go home. No one, I don't even know you.
Yeah, Juan David Torres is just looking at him like he's insane.
God bless. All right, what about some final USL thoughts from y'all?
Indy 11 doing the thing. I'm still out, but if Aiden Quinn keeps playing wingback, I'm back in.
I kind of like what Indy's doing. I kind of like it.
It's not always fun to watch until this weekend, and that might just be Monterrey not being good at soccer anymore, but who can say?
Indy's last 6 wins have been 1-0 across all competitions.
Yeah, which is boring soccer, folks.
Bob Lilly has never been more jealous, ever. Any final USL thoughts from you, Ryan? How about some final thoughts on the night? Ryan, let's start with you.
Yeah, I'm still working my way through just kind of old classic films that I've not seen before, but have heard good things about. And I watched In the Mood for Love yesterday, which was another really good film that I hadn't seen. So definitely would recommend checking out.
In re-release in 4K if you have an art house theater in your city, by the way. To random people who care about that sort of thing in the listening base.
The only re-release I was looking at recently was This Is Spinal Tap.
Yes, the 41st anniversary, I think. Nice even number.
John, what say you?
Cautiously optimistic for Superman, which is coming out. Decent reviews, so feeling good there. Otherwise, Open Cup is back. I know there are no USL teams playing, but watch it. It's fun. You would have got to see former USMNT star Omar Gonzalez slap a guy, get a red card, and then 1 minute later, his Chicago Fire go up on a penalty kick. Also, this game features 10 starters that used to play in the USL at some point. So if you're watching the Open Cup, you're going to see guys you recognize.
Yeah, they're playing Minnesota's playing Chicago, and there's one of my friends, he called me today. He's from Chicago, lives in Minneapolis. And this was what I was actually going to bring up anyway. So he calls me. He's super excited because his Cubbies are finally coming to town and he gets to see them. It's been 2 years and all this stuff. And he's telling me about all this stuff. And he's like, I don't know. It's like there's going to be so much Chicago sports in town because of the U.S. Open Cup. There's going to be Fire fans here. There's going to be Cubbies fans here. It's going to be great. And he was like, and what happens when I go outside to go to work and you have a great rest of my day? Someone stole my car. I was like, dude. I was like, that's insane. I have not heard of someone's just car being stolen in such a. I've heard people breaking into cars. Not I drove away with your car. I can't think of the last time I've heard that happen.
That's crazy, man. I feel so bad.
Yeah, and so in the middle of the show, he is, all things considered, right? His car is gone. There's no way for him to get to work now. He is having an absolute crash out over the Cubs bullpen. So, like, his priorities are in a strange place at the moment.
Crazy.
Because he was like, I can't believe this is going on. Now, I almost texted him, like, imagine losing 12-1 to the Marlins. And then I was like, your car was stolen today, so maybe your day is a little bit worse. Just a little bit.
Now, unless you are like a pro at this and you understand, okay, here's how I get the paint changed, here's what's up with the license plates. I feel like this is a very traceable crime. I don't know. That's an idiot's opinion, but.
Yeah, I think he said that when the police came, they were like, oh, yeah, it's the same guy stealing them. And he was like, how do you know that? How do you know it was?
There's just some dude roaming around stealing cars. I love it.
What preventative measures are we taking?
If they know it's the guy, why is the guy?
I'd recommend arrest. How about?
That was it. That was what I bring to the table tonight, is telling you about my friend crashing out over the Cubs and not his car being stolen. So, bless. Well, hey, it's always fun catching up with you guys. It's good to see you guys. Kid season has a big episode coming out later this week. Check that out. It is Fort Wayne related, so that is very, very exciting. There's a giveaway happening, so check that out. Join the Discord. We're in there all the time, having a good time, lots of conversation. So that's always fun. And in 2 weeks now, we're going to be in Portland, Maine, and we are so excited. We're finalizing some details with them, but we are absolutely stoked. And if you're in Portland, or if you're making the trip up from Pittsburgh, or if you're just in neutral, please say hi. Please say hi. We can't wait to talk.
If you're A-list actor Patrick Dempsey, also come say hi.
Poster shot with us, please. Please.
If you're Senator Angus King, who was at the game over the weekend, come say hi. We love that too.
Man,
I want to meet Moxie the Moose, though.
If you're Moxie and you want to give me your head, I'm open to that.
Clip that. And with that, I do think it's time for Alan's Boys. See y'all next week.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show.
The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see everyone again next time.